We were pretty famous back in high school. Trust us!
Had a whole future ahead of us, but now we suck.
All that potential now is flowing in the aqueducts.
Through the sands of time, many did forget.
But now our time has come to resurrect. But a podcast?
Sad I know, but can you blame us?
We are desperate to be much more than high school famous.
Hello and welcome to High School Famous, a podcast where we'll probably talk about high school, but hopefully we will not. I am Matt.
Hey, I'm Sean.
Sean, we're going to try something new today that we haven't done yet, and we're going to let the listeners know a little bit about what we've been doing in the last week. However, I wrote your news and you wrote my news, and neither one of us have read them until just now. So
that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if we were going to try to play this off like this was our real week.
Oh, now why play it up, right?
Okay, so that's what happened. Matt wrote what I did during my week, and I wrote what Matt did, and we're about to read them cold. We sent them to each other, but we have not read them beforehand.
Yes.
So would you like me to go first, or would you like to go first?
Depends. How confident are you feeling? Do you want me to go first?
I think this... I don't care. It doesn't matter to me.
Okay, I'm going to go first.
Okay.
Here's my cold read of what I've been doing this week. Hi, I'm Matt. Well, this week was a big week, you see? Yeah, I got to do better than this already. I got to make this at least sound like I got to make it at least sound like. So we're going to start over. Take two. Hi, I'm Matt. Well, this week was a big week, you see. I work in the big city, the Windy City. Get out of my way or I'll step on your shoelaces with no apologies. Every morning's the same. I got the big time job crunching numbers. I crunch numbers so big, no rural brain can think them, so don't try it. I wear the tailored suits and the shined shoes. Don't let them kick you on your way out the door. My briefcase ain't just... What? Ain't for just in... All right. My briefcase ain't just for in case. It's got documents.
Oh, you screwed it up.
Did I screw it up? Ain't just in case. Sorry, let me do that again. My
briefcase ain't for just in case.
Ain't for just in case. That's what I said the first time, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I'll listen to it again later, and I'll just cut all this out. My briefcase ain't for just in case. It's got documents so much you'd think it's Christmas at the courtroom's house. But don't tell my boss, or he'll take my wife to dinners, and I'll thank him for it. Okay. All right. I'll knock through the nights to give you an idea. Monday, I had pizza so deep it pondered the meaning of it all. Tuesday, watched the Bear Cubs play the Bull Sox for the Stanley Pennant. Wednesday, the Blackhawks are the Chicago hockey team. But only on Wednesday, right?
No.
Just on Wednesdays. All right.
That's just what you did on Wednesday.
Oh, it doesn't... All right.
Well, the previous day I covered the other teams. Or you
right,
covered
but
the
it
other
just
teams.
says Wednesday, the Blackhawks are the Chicago team.
Yep.
So that's it. Okay. Thursday saw a card shark making some green under the purple line. Saw a guy making brown under the green line, and got off on lawns and saw a show at the Riviera. That part's fairly accurate. Don't know which one. Probably Chicago. Friday, took a shower. I don't talk about the weekends. That's it.
Wow, wow.
It was
an
busy.
Interesting week you had.
Yeah, I think somebody looked up some things about Chicago before writing this.
Yeah, I think that someone was going to be very boastful about the fact that they live in Chicago and they do all the big Chicago things.
I like to talk a lot about where I live and all the sports ball teams and what they're up to.
Did you have any? Did you come across any moral dilemmas when taking a bite out of the pizza that was so deep it pondered the meaning of it all?
No, I try to disconnect from my food when I'm eating it. I just I try not to communicate with it ever, which is what it seemed to be doing before I bit into it. It was trying to communicate. It was trying to have a really deep conversation, and you know.
I think it had a bit. I think based on what you said about your week,
Right.
I'd say that pizza was having somewhat of an existential moment, and then you just I just
put an end to that big time.
You showed it the meaning of it all. So wow, what an impressive week!
Yeah, you know,
what an impressive. I
hope you live up to it. Hope your week was slightly as intense as mine.
Robust as yours.
I have a feeling that you won't boast about where you live as much as I did.
I have a feeling that in the coming weeks you will also not boast about where you live.
Oh, okay.
I think that this was just a nice, fun.
Was it too much? Was it too much work for me to look up a bunch of facts about Chicago?
No, but I mean, it's going to get old after this time.
Well, I'll be the judge of that as I write them for myself and tell you about my day.
You didn't mention one thing about visiting the big shiny metal thing in the park, whatever that's called, or any of that stuff.
Because somebody obviously didn't look up what it was called.
I did it. I did at one point, but I can't remember what it is. I think it's at Millennium Park.
Yes.
Is that right?
It's the Bean at Millennium Park.
I don't think it's really called the Bean, though, because I didn't see anything that was called the Bean. I think that's maybe a local.
It's referred to as the Bean, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Anyways, I mean, Sean, what have you been up to this week?
Oh well, let me just tell you all about it. Okay. Hey, I'm Sean. I'm going to talk about my week. Hello, all you beautiful meat sacks. It is I, Sean, everyone's favorite obstacle. This week has been A1. I started out this week with only one extra pair of socks, which, as you know, can only buy you so many favors from the Almighty. Luckily, he was feeling, oh wait, I'm sorry. I shouldn't assume the Almighty's gender identity. Damn it, Sean, get it together, you idiot. Okay. Luckily, they was feeling extra generous, and I was granted safe passage to the inside of a Mervin's circa 2004. After making a quick exit, I grabbed the nearest loose person and offered them goods and services in exchange for a ride back to civilization. Unfortunately, that loose person just ended up being a hat filled with brioche buns. Oh, those are delicious. We both had a big laugh over the misunderstanding, yet I was declined a ride but gained a friend. Also, I learned to beatbox. Check this out. Characters followed by the word out that don't form a word.
What?
Well, I think that about sums up my week. So until next time, keep you fish stick fishy and your stick fish sticky. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this last thing.
What the fuck happened?
I don't. Well, I copied and pasted it from docs into something, and so maybe that caused a problem.
I think it might have.
So after the word where it says check this out, there's like an A with a circumflex over it, what I believe is the sign for British pounds, and then that it's not a colon, but it's that character where there's two vertical slashes, one above the other. I don't know what that character is called or what it's used for.
It literally should have just been an ellipses.
It was not that.
An ellipses followed by the words "pause silently for a moment."
So I'm guessing I was supposed to be saying "check this out," pause silently, and then not perform any beatboxing.
Correct.
And then
just continue
say
reading.
that sums up my week.
Yeah,
which I did. So I really thought there was something, a complete section I was missing that I was supposed to perform.
Nope. I wanted your beatboxing skills are just non-existent. True.
Yeah, they're off beatboxing. So how was Chicago, the show that you may or may not have seen at the Riviera?
I definitely, was that what that said, that I went to the show Chicago at the Riviera?
Well, yeah, you got off on lawns and went to a show at the Riviera. You're not sure which one, but probably Chicago.
Oh, gotcha. See?
Because you're from Chicago, so everything has to be about Chicago.
Right.
You understand?
I'm gonna tell you. Yeah, no, I don't know. I honestly still don't even remember what show I went and saw.
Oh man,
my improv is all a little off today.
So yeah, so those were very interesting weeks. I liked that.
Yeah. So something we can try to do and see if it something that we enjoy doing every week, or we can can it, or whatever. We'll figure it out. I think for now,
I hope you're
play
not
with
as
it.
I hope you're not as cocky next week.
Well, we'll find out.
I mean, you crunch numbers so big, no rural brain can think them. So don't try it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like rural people
And you
just
and your
can't
your
handle
briefcase
numbers.
your briefcase ain't for just in case.
It's true.
It's got documents so much you'd think it's Christmas at the courtroom's house.
Well, I'm just curious how the Mervyn's was.
Mervyn's. Well, it was still empty, but it was a completely different store.
Not in 2004, it wasn't.
Right. So I guess I went back in time 16 years to go shopping.
Because the Mervyn's didn't close down until 2007.
So, I mean, what? You didn't even include... You went back 3 years.
I went back far enough
it
that
closed.
they were still
Just-
open.
There was still a bustling shopping...
Yeah, for at least 3
center.
more years. But
I
you
mean,
got out of
really,
there real quick.
If there's any reason to time travel, it's to be able to shop at Mervyn's again.
Well,
That's the
yeah.
only reason I can think of.
It's what I missed the most about 2004.
Yeah. I mean, Doc and Marty had it all wrong. Although when those movies were made, Mervyn's probably still existed. So there was no need to time travel to shop there.
Right.
Yeah. So they had it all right, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what we've learned about this is the needs or the benefits of time travel change over time.
I would say yes.
Right. So there.
And the needs for
Okay.
time travel. Yeah, the need for time travel will change over time as well. Right.
I mean, there's no way to disprove that.
Like what I might need to time travel for a year from now is not what I might need to time travel for right now.
So here's an interesting use of time travel. Traveling into the future to find out what you would need to time travel for in the future. You could find out ahead of time your needs for time travel by utilizing time travel itself.
What if you time traveled into the past to convince yourself to not time travel into the future, or to not time travel in the future? That's a big paradox waiting to happen right there. Right?
Yeah.
So you go back in
'cause that would-
time and then convince yourself to never time travel. Then your current person that goes back in time will then no longer exist.
It's like
If
you're
time travel is linear like that, if it's, if
yeah.
yeah.
So it's like you're delivering a message that you will cause to never be delivered,
Right.
right?
Eventually.
Well, there's no eventual to never. It's instantly never.
Well, like
Eventually, I'll never do that.
Basically, as soon as you deliver the message is no longer going to be delivered.
Yes. But then does that mean that the message was never delivered in the first place?
Right. How does that? Yeah. How does that? Because then your past self will then either have or not have that information.
Now, if we base this on the strange rules of like Endgame,
Mhm.
where changing the past doesn't change the future, then your present self that goes to the past will not affect your own present or future. You will have always traveled to the past to tell
Right.
yourself not to time travel.
Yep. But if we use the Back to the Future rules, which I think is more entertaining for this purpose,
I think so. Yeah.
you go deliver
that's really
you go to deliver news to your past self, and you both do and don't deliver that news at that point. It's Schrodinger's time travel.
Yes. Yes, it is. Oh, that kind of hurts.
It's just popping holes in all of thought processes and theories, and
You mean we're putting holes in all those concrete theories about how
Right.
time travel would work?
exactly.
I mean, now, this is all, of course, based on the idea that your past self would take the advice of your future self and never time travel.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, you'd have to be a very a very level-minded and like open-minded person to just accept the fact that like, oh yeah, that's me from the future. I'm going to be okay with this.
yeah.
Whereas most
yeah.
people would probably like either not believe it or pass out.
I think there'd be a lot of people passing out.
Right.
Whereas the old person says, I'm young, and the young person says, I'm old, and you're still allowed into your house because it's the door is accessed by a fingerprint.
Right.
And you live in whatever development in Hill Valley that that the McFlys lived in.
Sean, I'm disappointed in you. If there's any movies that I feel like you should have the most knowledge about, it's the Back to the Future movies. I feel like you've watched those more than you've watched any other movies ever.
Do they live in Hilldale?
Hill Valley.
No, that's the city.
That's the city.
But I'm talking about the neighborhood. This neighborhood that they live in the future.
Boy, if only we had Google.
I know. I mean, you do.
You can't access it.
I can. I was thinking, if you're doing it, why should I do it?
I don't know. All right, Back to the Future. Da-da-da.
I'm guessing it's like Hilldale Estates or something like that.
We'll find out here in a minute if it's even how important it is to the plot of this right now. We're taking time to figure out which part of town he wants to live in. Da-da-da-da. So yeah, Sean, fill in with some information or something while I'm blah, blah.
Fill in with stuff.
Yeah, say anything. Trying to see if it says anything. So I'm looking through the plot right now, and I don't think that's such a huge.
Lyon Estates.
Lyon Estates.
Lyon Estates. Marty McFly lived here in. Wait. Oh no.
That's where he lives originally,
I was right.
Called Hilldale or what?
It was Hilldale.
Okay.
It says Marty McFly lived here in 1985 before moving to Hilldale. It was yes.
Okay.
I was right. It was Hilldale. I don't know if it's just Hilldale because Lyon Estates. I might have gotten estates from that. It might just be Hilldale and not Hilldale Estates. So there we go.
Interesting.
Enough of that.
Yeah, I guess. I thought the time travel stuff was kind of interesting.
I mean, it's really. I think that's one of those things where you could sort of. I mean, I don't know if there's any way you could just ponder it all day long,
right?
And still not have an answer of what would happen. I don't think there's any way to even try to take a guess at how that would work.
I think most people use the logic, the idea that Back to the Future did, where it's like, time is just this one line,
linear,
and you can go,
and you can
go either back or forward on it. I don't see how you could possibly go forward on it, other than I feel like time travel could only literally be one direction. I feel like you could travel back in time. I don't know if you'd ever be able to travel forward in time, because at the time once you travel back, nothing has occurred yet ahead of you. So how can you travel forward?
Right.
When none of that's ever occurred. So I feel like time travel literally could only be one direction.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Right? Because once you've traveled back, the future hasn't occurred yet.
True. So then you really have to you really got to think about that real hard. I don't think anybody would time travel then.
Right.
I mean, unless you're like, I always felt like I should have grown up in this era. And then you head back to that era.
When things were worse. It's no matter what.
Well, I mean...
no matter what, things were worse.
Everyone, I know. Everyone's always going to have... There's always going to be the sort of the romanticizing of previous eras in time.
Right.
But the harsh reality is we have it the easiest we've ever had it.
Right.
So I was just explaining to Leo earlier about how what a crow's nest is for and why people yelled land ho, and explaining that before there were planes or electricity or anything like that, if you wanted to travel across the ocean, you had to travel by ship and rely on the wind and the fact that they called out once they finally saw land again, because it took months to get across to another part of the world. And there's no way I would want to ever exist in a time like that.
Yeah, because that was the other thing too, is like when you would travel like across the ocean from one continent to another, you weren't guaranteed to survive. Like,
no.
There was nothing like, your chances of survival were greatly reduced as to now when you can hop on a plane and it takes hours,
Yeah. And
it's crazy.
You were stuck relying on whatever food they brought had to be stored so well that, I mean, so much of the food went bad. It was probably like salted like crazy to try to preserve any kind of meats or anything that would have been on board the ship. I'm sure there was daily fishing, maybe, if there was a way to... Did they have ways on ships like that just to cook fish if they caught it?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's ever been...
Cooking on a wooden ship sounds safe.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I don't know that they would have. Yeah, especially with sails involved.
Yeah.
Great. If a hole burns in the deck, big deal. But if your sail gets up in flames and there's lots of wind to feed that fire, you're stuck out there. So so does that mean that any meat they would have carried would have been cooked prior to the voyage going, like prior to the ship setting off? I don't know.
Yeah, this sounds like questions for a historian.
Yeah. I don't have one standing by.
Yeah. I don't either. All I have is Google and Wikipedia.
Should we try to book a historian for the future?
And just ask him these asinine questions. How did they, when they would sail across the ocean,
was the meat in the barrels cooked?
Why couldn't they have fruit? Why would fruit go bad?
We're in the sun.
Answer these questions.
Did pirates have cats?
They had to. So many rats on those ships.
Were there?
Yeah, they would have. Yeah, they would keep cats on ships to kill rats. Because when they would dock, the rats would
load up. Yeah, I would think. Wouldn't you think? Hey, we're about to leave. Let's do a sweep and let's do like an extermination session and get all these rats out of here. Although, do you think they ate rats out of desperation sometimes?
I mean, I'm not gonna say yes or no to that.
Well, I mean, I know. I mean, they're eating stuff that's giving them diseases. They end up having to like lose limbs. I'm sure plenty of people died.
All right, I found a little thing here that I'm going to.
All right, go for it.
Open and then read. What did sailors eat? Feeding sailors during a long voyage across the Atlantic Ocean to the New World was a challenge. Since refrigerators were not available to preserve food for the voyage, the provisions had to last the length of the trip. The mariners would first eat those foods that spoiled the quickest. To preserve certain foods such as meat and fish, they were dried, salted, smoked, or pickled. Excuse me. Sailors did not have cans, so the meat/fish may have been packed in wood barrels or crates. I like it's may have, like they don't even know.
Yeah.
Some ships carried
it all got eaten.
Right. Some ships carried livestock, which was butchered and eaten during the voyage. Other foodstuffs would have been similarly stored for the trip. Food would often rot or become infested with weevils. Rats and mice were also a serious problem because they ate the rations and would leave their droppings in the food. Most of the time, provisions had to be rationed during the voyage because it was difficult to have enough food for the entire voyage. One would never know if the trip would be quick or if it would take longer than expected to reach their destination. And then it kind of goes over.
So they had to have had a way to prepare the meat somehow, because if they're butchering livestock, they're not going to eat raw.
Here you go. Cooking also presented a problem on a wood ship in the middle of the ocean. Most ships of the period did not have a kitchen or galley for food preparation. Cooking and eating were done on the open deck. Cooking fires may have been lit once a day and then put out because of the fear of the ship catching fire.
I mean, and so think about this. You're on a flight, right? And your flight, it's going to take a little bit longer than normal. You're just like, oh, well, what's another 20 minutes? Right. I can watch another part of a TV show or something. Back then, you're like, oh, the wind's not picking up. We might die. It might be another 4 weeks before we see land again.
Right.
And we only have food to feed us for another 3 weeks. We might all die.
And then they're like, oh, man, if only we could time travel back in time to before we left, we would have either not come or just packed more food.
I don't think that... Do you think back then there was any contemplation of traveling through time?
Probably no more than
we're talking. Yeah. We're talking like what, the 1400s at this point?
I mean, there was that in other times when boats were used. Yeah, 16th century.
Yeah,
so 1500s.
Yes, I know, and I'm sure also in the 17th century or the 1600s. When
or the 19th century.
Well, there was a difference. Yeah.
They still used sailboats.
They did. I wonder when the first sort of like steamship or some sort of motorized boat came into play. But I don't wonder it enough to find out.
Okay. I was gonna say I can look it up. All of this unplanned research.
Yeah, well, we're meandering and we're going off on tangents and stuff like that.
Well, I was telling you before we got on, because we kind of talked about movies last week. There was a movie that came out the year we were born, in Turkey.
Oh, before you start, can I tell you some dumb little funny thing that happened to me? So
that you didn't include in your what happened to you this week?
Well, it just happened. Like before earlier today. So it was impossible to add it to the document that I received after it happened. So I went to play disc golf. It was around noon or so, and then this is probably gonna end up being really dumb, but
I can't wait.
I knew I wanted to stop and pick up some snacks and also stop through a drive-thru and pick up lunch before I came home, so I just had something to eat. And I only have one mask in the car, and I have it hanging from the lever by the steering wheel that turns on the wipers and the lights and stuff. And it's a nice day, so I put my windows down. Well, I went through an intersection, and my mask blew out the window.
Before you even got there, I knew where this was going.
Yes. It blew out the window right in the middle of the intersection. And it's a windy day here, so it was just blowing down the road. I went straight, and the wind took it left. So I had to quick turn around and then take a right at that intersection and turn on my hazards and get out. And I found it on the road because I'm like, I don't want to go home first, grab my at-home mask, and then go out again. So I found it, and I have a spray. I don't know if this was necessary or not. I have a spray bottle of hand sanitizer, so I just sprayed the inside and outside of it quick. Yeah. And let it kind of air out a little bit before I put it on.
And then you threw it back outside, let it...
Yeah.
Just threw it back out the window and let it air out.
I suspended it from a different part of the vehicle after that.
Gosh. Probably a good sign.
Once winter hits in full, this won't be a problem, but I won't hang it from that lever during this nice weather.
Yeah, I have one that I always keep in like the center console, so I haven't had that fear of it flying out the window yet. Because it's been really nice here the last week too. What's weird is, I don't drive with the windows down that much, so it's clear. That's clear to me now, especially because I figure I would have run into this problem before. Right. But I know I have had my windows down other times over the summer, and that's never come close to happening. I don't know why today was different, but weird. It was. Okay, so that was my story. Now you can go on about this Turkish movie that came out in 82. In 1982, it's a movie called, I'm going to butcher the hell out of this title, Dünyayı Kurtaran Adam, something like that. But it translates to The Man Who Saved the World.
Oh, wow. That's a big movie.
Right?
Does it say what month it came out or no?
I believe it might have come out in November. I don't know that exactly for sure. The only reason I have that slight inkling is that somebody put together a trailer for it on YouTube, but I don't think it's an official trailer. And it said coming November of 82. So because I'd like to think that we were both born and alive when this happened. Yeah, I mean, we may have been alive when the movie was released, not when it was filmed. Right. Clearly. But so I saw a brief little thing on the internet or on YouTube about this movie and kind of how it came to be. And originally what it was, I guess, during the time of this movie, there was unrest in Turkey and stuff. So I think there was something was going on where basically you couldn't make any movies against the government at that time because you would have been arrested and things. So they're trying to figure out we want to make a movie. We need to have this blockbuster come out so the kids have something to enjoy during this crazy time we're living in and all this stuff. So Star Wars had recently come out before that. So they're like, this movie did really well. We should do kind of a space opera like that. So they set out to do this movie, and the guy who backed it financially, they didn't have nearly the budget because I think Star Wars was 18 million to make. They had basically $300,000 American dollars to make this movie.
Which Star Wars movie?
Well, which one came out in 81?
In 81?
Yeah.
That'd be Return of the Jedi, I think.
Okay, so Return of the Jedi had just come out and stuff. So they had about $300,000 American dollars, which was double the normal budget they would have for these movies. So they ended up building a bunch of sets like on this beach, and then a storm came, messed everything up. So they had none of their space set up, like their space ship like stages and stuff.
Yeah.
So they got very creative and basically stole a bunch of footage from Star Wars movies and newsreels and other stuff and used that to fill in all their space scenes. And
wow.
They also stole music from a bunch of different movies. So like the main song that plays through the movie is the main song from Raiders of the Lost Ark. So that's like dun, 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 like throughout this entire. So I've seen clips of this movie on YouTube because I kind of like I was looking this stuff up, and I jumped on YouTube and I just kind of looked at it. This movie is garbage. Oh my god! But it basically it's got a huge cult following now. I haven't found any English translations of the movie or anything, so the whole thing was in Turkish, so I didn't understand any of it. Which I don't know if that would have helped to understand what was really going on in the movie. So the movie is described as a Turkish science fiction martial arts superhero adventure film. The film is popularly known as Turkish Star Wars due to its notorious unauthorized use of footage, music, and sound effects from Star Wars and other science fiction films. The film combines science fiction themes with martial arts fantasy film action, having more in common with the 1970s Hong Kong martial arts films than really anything to do with Star Wars. So this movie is ridiculous. And I can read through this plot if you'd like to, because you'd never assume this movie would be at all like what it's like. And when I was watching some of it, it's literally like the first scene of it is like it's ripped news footage of a Soviet rocket launch, and then you see the Death Star, you see some X-Wings flying around. Just all this stuff is just like so blatant. And then like when there's scenes of the guys that are supposed to be piloting like spaceships, it's literally just them sitting in front of like a green screen or blue screen at the time, I'm sure, with like, I guess it was a helmet that they had borrowed from some guy that was on his motorcycle that had like passed by. So they like borrowed his helmet, and they're literally
just still there.
They're literally just sitting in front of a thing, and there's just, you know, shots of Star Wars behind them. And like not even like shots of them being chased, but like shots of like ships flying by. Like it just does not look right at all. It's ridiculous.
So it didn't look like somebody was in the cockpit of a ship.
No, it looks like they were just sitting in front of
space behind them.
Just looked like they were sitting in front of a screen with stuff happening behind them.
Space behind them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's pretty bad. So the film follows the adventures of Murat and Ali, whose spaceships crash on a desert planet following a battle, shown by using footage from Star Wars, as well as Soviet and American space program newsreel clips. While hiking across the desert, they speculate that the planet is inhabited only by women. Ali does his wolf whistle, which he uses to attract women, or uses on attractive women. Oh. However, he blows the wrong whistle, and they are attacked by skeletons on horseback, which they defeat in hand-to-hand combat.
Where did they get the skeletons? What movie did they get the skeletons on horseback from?
No, this was that's
their own thing?
That's actual footage. They made really cheap skeleton costumes, and I'm sure rented very almost dead horses.
So it's people. It's someone in a skeleton costume.
Yes,
like the black clothing with just a picture of a skeleton on the outside of it.
Not that bad. Like they're.
I was hoping.
Yeah, it's a little bit better than that.
I was hoping they would have like a skeleton, like a doctor's office type skeleton in a science class, and then they sort of do puppetry with it. That would have been awesome.
No, that would be Army of Darkness.
Right.
That movie's great.
Which they could have stolen footage from.
Oh yeah, see? No, Army of Darkness came out well after that.
After.
Yeah.
As soon as I said that, I'm like,
that would have been great. So no, these were costumes that were actually made, and they have other costumes that look like the Cylons or the robots from Battlestar Galactica. They look like almost exactly like those. They have one robot character that looks like the robot from what was that? Lost in Space. Robot looks just like the robot from Lost in Space. Then they have,
Danger Will Robinson, Danger robot.
They have a robot that looks exactly like that in the movie. Well, not exactly, but like basically it was a complete ripoff of that and stuff. It's just super, super bad. So after they defeat the skeletons on horseback in hand-to-hand combat, the main villain soon shows up and captures the heroes, bringing them to his gladiatorial arena so they can fight. The villain tells them that he is actually from Earth and is a 1,000-year-old wizard. He tried to defeat Earth, but was always repelled by a shield of concentrated human brain molecules.
Tried to defeat Earth?
He tried to defeat Earth.
So his main opposition is Earth.
Apparently. But he's from Earth. But he was always repelled by a shield, in quotes, a shield of concentrated human brain molecules, which looks like the Death Star.
Oh, wow. Oh, God.
The only way he can bypass this impenetrable defense is to use a human brain against it.
Okay.
Yep.
Use a human brain against human brain molecules.
Yep. Oh, man.
And does he have to project this human brain into this one narrow opening which leads down to a weakness that's in the center of the brain molecules?
Potentially.
That will cause a chain reaction?
I don't know if that's for sure, but I can guarantee you they definitely used that footage.
I bet they did.
No, they literally did. I've skimmed through enough of this movie.
You've seen it.
I skimmed through enough of the movie to see what they did and didn't use.
Oh my gosh.
The heroes escape and hide in a cave full of refugees who already fled the villain's tyrannical rule. Murat develops a romantic connection with a woman there who looks after the children.
And he's allowed to because... Is he allowed to because the woman doesn't have a brain?
I don't believe that's the... No, this guy doesn't have issues with the brain. This is the hero who develops a romantic relationship.
I thought it was the... I
know it's hard to follow.
That was the villain.
In parentheses, it says, the implied romance is shown through many long eye contact and smiles from the girl, but nothing more. We need to watch this.
Yes, oh my gosh.
Zombies of the Dark Lord attack the cave and turn several of the children into zombies, their blood used to renew the evil wizard's immortality. The three then flee the cave and find a local bar, lifted directly from Star Wars, the Mos Eisley Cantina. The two men quickly get into a bar brawl, but the villain suddenly appears and captures them again.
Oh, gosh.
The wizard separates the men and tries to convince them to join him. He sends his queen to seduce Ali, while he orders Murat to fight before him. He offers Murat a chance to rule over the Earth and stars if he joins him. He possesses the power of Earth's ancestry in the form of a golden brain, and all he needs to conquer Earth is a real human brain. After Murat declines, hands his stuff. After Murat declines, the wizard shows that he has the woman and child in captivity. Enraged, Murat fights the wizard's monsters and skeleton guardians. Meanwhile, monsters attack Ali when he is about to kiss the queen. He defeats the monsters and joins Murat's fight. They are both disabled by laser-armed guards and then unsuccessfully tortured by the wizard. Finally, the wizard puts Murat against a giant monster in the arena. Murat defeats the monster and flees, taking the woman and child with him. Ali is left in captivity. You following along still?
Do the guys have lasers for arms? Or
they
are
just
they
said
armed with lasers?
It said laser armed.
Ooh, that could go both ways.
Could go both ways.
My guess is they don't have the budget for laser arms.
Right.
But it'd be awesome if they did.
Right.
Anyway, go on.
So Murat finds out about a sword made by the 13th clan, who melted a mountain thousands of space years ago.
What's a space year?
I have no idea what a space year is. Murat later finds this sword, shaped like a lightning bolt, it's not, in a cave defended by 2 golden ninjas. Of course. He takes he takes the swords after dispatching the guards in an uncharacteristically short fight. By means of the movie, this fight is uncharacteristically short compared to all the other fights throughout the movie, is basically what it's saying.
Okay, so they're only basing it on the other fights in the movie.
Yeah, so basically all these other fights that shouldn't take as long as they take forever, and then this one, which you're like, okay, he's gonna be getting this very. This
should be the big. This should be a big, lengthy.
Yeah, this should be a big fight because they're here to protect this sword, so they shouldn't be so easily defeated. And he just fucking defeats them in I think it's 20-second fight.
Wow.
Renewed by the sword's power. Oh, the golden ninjas? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I want to see these golden ninjas.
Terrible. They're literally just these dudes in these suits that are these outfits that are gold in color, obviously, but they're loose fitting. And then they basically just have the full hood, what an executioner would wear, completely covering their face, no eye holes or anything.
Sure.
So that's probably why they lost the fight so quickly.
So quickly.
They couldn't see
that's
anything. So renewed.
Yeah, renewed by the power of the sword.
Yeah, renewed by the sword's power, Murat goes to free his friend from the sorcerer's dungeon. However, Ali becomes envious of the sword, knocks out Murat, and takes both the sword and the golden brain. The wizard then uses trickery and deceit to make Ali hand over the artifacts. Both trickery and deceit. He's got all the tricks and deceit.
And the deceit.
Having touched these items, the wizard now has increased powers and traps Murat, Ali, the woman, and the child. Ali is killed in a foolish attempt to escape. That's the end of that sentence.
Uncharacteristically quick.
Uncharacteristic escape. Grief-stricken, Murat decides to melt down the golden sword and golden human brain and forge them into a pair of gauntlets and boots. I don't know how he got possession of those again, if the wizard had them.
Yeah. And how would that help him defeat anything?
I have no idea. So, equipped with magical gloves and super jumping boots, he searches for the sorcerer, now it's a sorcerer, to avenge his friend's death. After fighting numerous monsters and skeletons, he comes face to face with his nemesis and karate chops him in half. He then leaves the planet in a ship that greatly resembles the Millennium Falcon.
Greatly.
And by greatly resembles, it's literally just stock footage of the Millennium Falcon. So I've seen too much of this movie already, and I've only seen 5 minutes of it. But I have seen where he karate chops the guy in half. It's very unexpected. So basically, every fight move is super, super telegraphed, which is great. So he's the camera's on the guy's face, so kind of like how you're seeing me right now, and so the guy's attacking the camera, but it's like that kind of stuff, and then it'll be a shot of the guy, and the guy's just touching the dude's face in weird ways, and then he's just doing that for a while. Then the guy starts his nose starts bleeding. He's just taking it. He's not fighting back at all. And then just out of nowhere, the guy's just and karate chops towards the camera. And then it's shot from behind the bad guy, and it just goes. It just splits in half
like this.
And then there's a shot of the guy laying on the ground, and they literally just it's literally just a shot of the guy's face, but they just shadowed half of his this half of the screen. So and then they did the other side. But the way they shadowed it is they shadowed it to the side of his nose completely, and then showed the other half of his face shadowed to the other side of his nose completely. So it's just it's really poorly done in many ways. But so and then also with that whole towards the end fight scene, the guy's just leaping a lot because he's got these magical super jumping boots. So there's just shots of him leaping towards the camera just constantly, and you can tell he's just bouncing off of trampolines or something. And I watched this other YouTube clip of a guy talking about the movie, and apparently there's a scene earlier in the movie where the two protagonists are trying to toughen themselves up by punching rocks and then like strapping boulders to their legs and jumping around to basically like defeat gravity. So they like tie boulders to themselves and they're like bouncing around. And there's this funny close-up scene of the guy like getting all like psyching himself up, and then he goes to karate chop down towards a big boulder, and then it's a bad cut of two completely smaller rocks flying away. Like flying away, but not like looking like they were one piece ever. Just two separate. Right. Like that's how he split them so smoothly apart from each other.
Two separate, completely formed rocks.
Yeah, it's super, super ridiculous. And if I can find like a translate, even if it's just subtitles
or something, there has to be a subtitle version.
Well, I think there is. So there was these two different. I read that there's two different comedy troupes that had done shows where they played the movie with the soundtrack and everything, but then they provided the dialogue for it. Sure. Somebody literally, so it says during the introduction to the show, Moran, who I guess is the leader of the troupe or something, stated that the translator told them that it doesn't make any more sense in Turkish. So basically there's a guy who translated the entire movie for them and just said, look, it doesn't make any more sense in our language as it does in yours translated. So, it's ridiculous.
I mean, it has to be somewhat, I would say it has to be easier to follow if you're hearing it in English than if you're hearing it in Turkish and you don't know Turkish. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Not to say that it makes any sense in English, but
right.
Well, at least you'll know it doesn't make sense.
What looks weird, too, is like, so what little bit I've seen, it looks like the entire thing is dubbed itself. Like, they probably recorded the whole thing, then went back and dubbed all their dialogue over the top of it because it looks just off and bad. And there's times where there's a lot of dialogue happening, but nobody's moving their mouth. So I'm not sure, is that a voiceover or is this just like, I can't tell what's happening because obviously I don't speak Turkish, but like, yeah. So I don't know if it's supposed to be a voiceover that's happening or if somebody's talking but just not moving their mouth. It's weird. I highly recommend like checking out some, like I can send you the link of this thing that I saw. This amazing true story of Turkish Star Wars that this guy, it's just like an 8-minute video this guy kind of did talking about it.
So this has a good chance of making Birdemic look good. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
in comparison,
if you look at I guess it depends on if you look at what each director was trying to accomplish. They're both bad. They're both bad versions. I mean, I guess the movie was pretty successful in Turkey, even though people knew like that the footage was stolen and the music was stolen and all that kind of stuff. But I guess it did well. It did okay there. It didn't do okay anywhere outside of Turkey until like the 90s when people kind of like realized it existed. And then there's like, and it just kind of became this like, big cult thing. How all those damn movies are where it's like, this is ridiculous. And like everybody just ends up loving it for how ridiculous it is.
Like the Room.
Yeah. So they did end up making a sequel or somebody ended up making a sequel to the movie not terribly long ago. I think it was 2006.
Was the sequel made in Turkey?
Yeah. So in 2006, there was a sequel called The Son of the Man Who Saved the World. And I guess they really kind of tried to play up the campiness of the first one and like the joke, like tried to make it more of like, hey, we know that movie was kind of funny and a joke, so let's make it more funny and a joke. So it just didn't do well because it was just like, oh, now you're trying to make it this thing. But that was made by somebody completely different. So the magic of the original is that it was trying to be a serious movie, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that it's so horrible is what makes it so good.
Right.
So whenever you try to do that, where you try to play on that and you make a more self-aware version or a sequel to that same thing, it doesn't work.
Yeah. So I'm going to send you a link to that video that I watched, because they talk about the sequel that the director actually wants to make. Sounds like it's perfectly right up the alley of the original. Like it's like, okay, if he makes that, it's going to be perfect. If it's
so the original director wants to make a sequel.
He wants to make a sequel, and he's kind of pitched an idea for a sequel, and it sounds pretty amazing.
I bet you if he put up some kind of Kickstarter for it, he would get enough backing to have triple the budget he had on the original movie.
Yeah, probably.
Wow. So
yeah, I'll send you that link to that video so you can see that, and then it'll give you a little taste of the movie itself. It's pretty ridiculous. The whole movie is on YouTube, but it's not translated or subtitled. I haven't looked any deeper to try to find a subtitled version of it. But I think it might be worth a watch. It's definitely not something I'm going to sit down by myself and watch, but I would sit down with a person or two to watch it because it's something that looks like it's good and mockable. I
know that this is going to be a longer thing than what these other things are, but do you think this compares to something like what was it, the Indian Thriller or Benny Lava, that type of stuff? Do you think it's just as bad as those things? Well,
those things also are meant to be serious.
No, I know. Yeah. But as far as how bad they are, because Indian Thriller is pretty bad.
It's pretty rough. This movie's bad. Once you see any sort of clips from it, you'll it looks like
you'll get it.
It doesn't look like it was filmed in the 80s. That's for sure. It definitely looks, it's got that real low budget, because there's mummies in it and there's other crap, but they look so low budget. And apparently it tells you in that video that I just sent you the link to, they the costumes were made out of such cheap material that they would constantly be ripped apart during fight scenes. So they had a team of people just constantly repairing the costumes for the next day's fight scenes because they would just constantly be getting wrecked. But it's pretty ridiculous. I think it's worth a watch at some point if I can find a subtitled version of it.
I heard this thing about the 60s Batman show that the Batman symbol that was on his chest was just like a little flimsy piece of paper or something that was stuck to his costume.
Oh yeah,
and it would fall off and get torn and get creased, and they always just kept having to stick a new sticker on his costume.
Oh really?
So, I mean, the thing is, even stuff now can look pretty good, but it's in reality, it's probably pretty cheap.
Right.
So if you have effects practical effects like that look really cheap, or set pieces that look really cheap on camera, they're probably really, really cheap in real life.
Oh yeah, yeah. Once you get a look at this, I want you to get a look at the lightning bolt sword. It's it's not sharp at all. It's basically, it just looks like a piece of cardboard almost that it's so flat edged everywhere, and it's the most just, it would, in no way is this sword practical in any sense. You couldn't, if you stabbed somebody with it, you wouldn't be able to pull the sword back out.
Ooh,
the way it's designed. You wouldn't even really necessarily be able to stab it into somebody very far, because some of the points go one direction and the other points go the other direction. And he's sitting here just over dramatic swings with it and stuff, and it's just it's almost that kind of footage where they it almost looks like they speed it up to make it look more like he's hitting a lot faster or harder, it's that kind of a look to a lot of this movie. But yeah, I just kind of found that and read up on that today. I'm just this is ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
Are you looking at some stuff now?
Well, I tried to search to see if I could just find an image of the sword, but I just brought up something that just talks about Turkish Star Wars.
Okay.
I'm seeing what is likely to be a movie poster, or maybe just the cover to the movie.
Is it the picture of the guy with his kicking up with a mountain in the background?
It does look like there's a mountain in the background. It looks like there's spaceships in the background.
There's spaceships. He's standing in front of a mountain or on a rock, and he's kicking up in the air.
Well, the words Turkish Star Wars are right by where his other foot would be, where he's standing, so it's hard to tell.
Yeah, that's not the original poster then.
So, but at the bottom, oh yeah, this is different. Let me show you what I see. The funniest thing about what I'm looking at is at the very bottom. Got to figure out how to flip the camera on here. So here's what I'm looking at. Okay, so
it's the same image of him. Yeah, that's definitely somebody's poster that they made later.
Folks, here's what looks to be some sort of a Jedi type character.
Yeah, holding a lightsaber.
right? Someone's doing some sort of martial arts moves, and then a symphony.
Literally being conducted. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely somebody else's art.
Like a fan art type of a.
That's pretty great.
It's like the silhouettes at the bottom made it for me.
I want to see if I can find the lightning bolt sword. It's fucking great.
Well, I'll be able to look it up.
Yeah, but so yeah, that's Turkish Star Wars for you.
Turkish Star Wars.
It's pretty great.
Otherwise known as the man who saved the world. Is that what it is?
Man who saved the world.
And then whatever that translates to in Turkish. I wonder if I can get that spoken. I wonder if it has Turkish on here. Hold on. English to, can I do Turkish? Is that the language? Is it called Turkish?
You're not asking the right guy.
Yeah. I got this thing where I can, punch in and have it translate and it would speak.
I found
translation.
So hold on. I found an image from the movie. Him holding the sword.
Oh my gosh.
See what I mean by that? It does not look like a lightning bolt at all.
No, nothing like a lightning bolt.
And that sword would not go into somebody or come out.
No. It would it's like the very end of it is one of those, it's like those pumpkin pokers. So it would only stab you as far as the point is.
Right.
And then the rest of the sword would block you and prevent you from stabbing any further.
There's an image of the dude in front of the
X-Wing?
Yeah. So you can see the image to the left is the X-Wing, whatever. So you can just see it's just a screen behind him. And the image to the right is it makes it look like he's in a cockpit, but that would be looking out of the Millennium Falcon cockpit.
Sure.
Right?
So he's not watching where he's going.
Oh, here's another great one.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just footage of jets flying, I guess, into his jet.
Yeah.
And he's flying a completely different direction as the rest of them.
If that thing closest to him is supposed to be another ship, he's basically on top of that ship.
Yeah.
His ship is just kind of resting on top of it.
There you can see some of the skeleton guys and the Cylon-looking guys and some mummies.
Oh, excellent.
So, yeah, it's great stuff.
Some people got paid to be in that movie.
I would assume not much if their budget was only 300,000 American dollars.
Right. There might have been a lot of pro bono work going on over there.
Well, I guess the main guy was a very big, huge actor in Turkey. He was been in tons of movies. He was the big guy, the big get, and he was on this movie was part of a big 8-movie deal or something with the director and the studio and this actor. So
was this the first of the 8-movie deal?
No, I don't believe so. I think this was mixed. This was towards the end, probably. But
wow.
I guess the profits of the movie got bought the director and bought the director a nice new car, and I guess the guy who ran the studio, he got a new car, and then they ended up not having to rent their offices anymore. They purchased their office and everything, so they made plenty of money off of this movie. Probably because they didn't spend much because they pirated so much of the film.
Right. So, I mean, there has to be some kind of stories about Lucasfilm and other things coming after them.
I have no idea. That part I haven't seen any information on, but just, I would assume either they went after him or they're just not even worth it.
It might be not worth it.
It's just because you can see in that thing I sent you, they talk about how he stole the footage. And so all the shots look super squeezed in because of the way the film was shot. And then the way they projected, so the way the movie was filmed, it was filmed squeezed so that when it got projected, it stretched out and it fit within, movie studio or movie theaters and stuff. So Makes sense. Guy, when he stole it, they didn't do that with it. They stole the footage squeezed, but when they projected it, it stayed squeezed. So all the shots of the Star Wars stuff, everything looks long and skinny. So it's kind of goofy.
Oh, this is getting better and better.
I know, right? So
this just keeps getting better.
Look it up later on YouTube, and you can skim through the movie. You'll find the movie if you just copy the actual Turkish title and throw it into YouTube. It'll pop up pretty quick. It's an 1.5 hour long movie, which apparently was originally a 2.5 hour long movie, and they cut an hour of the movie out.
Whoa. I would, without even watching it.
I did about 20 minutes of research for this movie and see how much I know about it already.
That's crazy.
But yeah, so they had to end up cutting an hour of this movie out to shorten it and everything. But the whole thing is on YouTube. So check it out, jump through it, skip through the movie a little bit so you can just see like how much of it is just stolen and how much music. Like the Raiders theme is throughout the entire damn movie. It's ridiculous. Like every time they're fighting, all of a sudden that song comes on. It's like, oh God.
Now, Harrison Ford had nothing to do with, what'd you say those Cylons are from?
Battlestar Galactica. No.
Harrison Ford had nothing to do with that, right?
No.
Okay. Because obviously you got the similarities. You got the connection.
Oh, like they're just like,
we Indiana really Jones and Star Wars.
We really enjoy Harrison Ford movies. They just steal every Harrison Ford movie.
Like there's scenes from The Fugitive and stuff like that.
Well, that would be well after that time, Sean. I was trying to think of movies before
right.
82 that he was in, and just
yeah.
I'm like, Star Wars and Apocalypse Now. He's in that for a little bit.
Is he in that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. I think we should. I think this is this has been another thing of High School Famous.
Whole another thing.
Yep. I'm
Great.
Sean.
I'm Matt.
Okay. Goodbye now.
If you like us, we're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as HSFamousPod. Email us at highschoolfamous@gmail.com. If you really love us, consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/highschoolfamous. Remember, we love you and want to have your babies.